The next question comes from another reader, Eddie Day from Gillingham, speaking about the council's CCTV, I think they're called smart cars. It seems these camera cars can park in hazardous positions to film us in less hazardous positions, and we're the ones that cop the fines, as he puts it. So are these vehicles a fair deterrent for bad driving and parking, and what would your group do to improve the public's view of the council's parking management system? Councillor Juby.
This is a very contentious issue across the whole of the Medway towns. The Liberal Democrats would try and ensure that the CCTV cars are used mainly for parking problems outside schools and outside the railway stations and for road safety issues, and not as a revenue generating scheme, which they seem to be getting the message seems to be going to the public. They're being used for revenue generation rather than safe road safety, and I would like to get it back to the road safety issues. One of the reasons the car, what I'm concerned about, is in certain parts of the towns the car's used a lot in where businesses are, and it's deterring customers going to those businesses. So it's having a negative economic effect on some businesses in Medway.
Thank you. Councillor James.
Well, I think that we would all rather not have the CCTV cars, but of course they came in as a consequence of indiscriminate parking, putting children's lives at risk outside of schools, and it was quite apparent that with the warden service we could not, if you like, police these areas in the way that was previously undertaken. They are not there to generate income. If a motorist did not park indiscriminately and ignore the parking restrictions, we would not need the CCTV cars. I know there's been some publicity about them parking on yellow lines. They have the same authority to park on yellow lines as what police cars do, but they do not have authority to be used for, if you like, the private use of the staff that are in them, because there has been reports of people pulling up and going into takeaways to collect, and staff have been reprimanded for that action. They are necessary because the motorists have a blatant disregard for the parking restrictions, which are put down in many instances as a result of public request, and we're getting more requests for the public to have these cars active in their streets.
Thank you. Councillor Godwin.
I think any enforcement has to have some level of public support, which sounds like a contradiction in terms, because people don't like enforcement of rules. So the CCTV car has become quite a focus, I think, for people's anger and resentment about enforcement per se. Now, if you go back to the original reason for having them, it was about people taking their children to school who were parking inappropriately, putting children at risk, and I think that's a very legitimate use of the CCTV cars. But of course they can only be used at certain times of the day to do that. So of course they've then been deployed in our town centres where most of the controversy has arisen from. And I remember the story I heard a couple of years ago where a bride turning up for a wedding, the wedding car was actually booked by the CCTV car waiting around the corner watching as she got out in her bridal gown. So I think, there has to be some sort of reasonable application. Where we would like to go with this is a major review of the use of CCTV car. Where I think it could be more effective outside of school hours is in some of the residential roads. We get lots of complaints from people who say people have parked irresponsibly on the corners where there's double yellow lines, perhaps denying potential access to things like ambulances or fire engines.